Tiger fans, rejoice. Finally, the lockout is over. I wanted to come on here on Thursday and make a video and talk all about it. But you know something? I'm not a lockout channel. I'm not a labor channel. Although on Wednesday night, when they almost did not come out with a deal, or when they didn't come to an agreement with a deal on Tuesday, Wednesday they negotiated, and then Thursday they almost didn't accept the deal, all because of the Scott Boras guy. Scott Boras had his grubby little fingers in there, and the executive board voted against it, 0-8. I could not believe it because the owners had come up so much on everything. And the players were like, oh, we need a little more. And the owners came up a little more. And they almost voted against it, but the final vote was 26-12, which means all the guys that still aren't arbitration eligible, all the guys that have only made a little bit of money in the big leagues, they're like, look, dudes, you guys are making the big of the bucks. You can afford to sit here and wait the CBA out a little bit more. But we want to play. It's time. Let's salvage a 162. And I think the owners realized that not playing 162 would absolutely murder the sport, and a sport that already the average age of the fan is 57 years old already, where how bad they looked already going into this negotiations, where they waited 43 days before they started negotiations, to where they met 7 times before the month of February, and they only had maybe a total of 5 hours met, and all the times where they discussed and just dragged their feet on non-core economic issues where they met one time a week. It was a joke. How everything was handled was a joke, and they knew, like, look, all right, this union is ready to miss games. They don't care. They're going to fight for these guys, and they're going to fight where they're going to fight for. And the players, they really had their feet stuck in. And I mean, to the point where the executive board voted 0-8, not a single person. They wanted it to continue on. That was a joke. And the owners finally coming up to what the players wanted. Thank God, because we finally have baseball. Finally, this is my first Tigers video of 2022. We can finally talk a little bit of spring training, because after the deal was ratified on Thursday, players had until today, Sunday, to come into spring camp, because first official games start the 17th. So, games start the 17th. Guys are there. Today, there's been some interviews come out with Miguel Cabrera. Javier Baez has talked. And now they're getting into expectations. And let's go and start talking about a little bit of roster moves and what to look out for spring training. So, today, I was up in Michigan the last 2 weekends, and today on my way back home here to Southern Ohio, which, by the way, Michigan is refusing to be warm. I have no idea. I come down here in Southern Ohio, it's like 55 today, and it's going to be 70 degrees almost all week. And up in Michigan, it's like, yeah, it's going to be 60 once with, low 50s the rest of the week and chance of flurries. It's like, what the hell? After the CBA was announced, got some opening day tickets. My brother, who's been on this channel with me, we're both going to the opening day and the following day against the White Sox. Tickets right now, guys, if you want to get tickets, are still pretty cheap. I don't know as if they were as cheap as they were the Thursday, but since opening day was supposed to be, I believe, the 4th, the tickets for the 8th are still priced accordingly to being like a week after opening day. So the tickets are still pretty cheap if you guys don't have tickets yet. I think I paid $45 a ticket, which is really good considering most times opening day is $100+ every single time. So on my way down, Dan Dickerson was on the radio with Pat Caputo. Pat Caputo's on there talking about the Tigers and everything they need to do, which he is an absolute blithering moron. And they were talking about, and I think this is going to be the biggest thing, Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green. Now, spring training, there's only like 18 or 19 spring training games versus what your normal 30 games. I think it's 30 or 31 games they normally get. And these guys, a lot of people think that they're going to make the team out of camp. They are both invited, non-roster invitees, like Jacob Robson and a couple other guys who are non-roster invitees. And I think it's going to be a hard thing to do. Now, Craig Monroe thinks they're going to make it out of camp, and, he's a homer. He's going to think anything, because he drinks the Kool-Aid hardcore. Dan Dickerson thinks they're going to make the team, and I respect Dan Dickerson's opinion a lot because this is a guy who sees the team every single day. So he thinks they have a chance to make it out of camp. He thinks they're going to be on the opening roster. And Miguel Cabrera was asked today, what do you think about how much do you want to play first base this year? And he said, hopefully none, because we want Torkelson on the roster. He wants Torkelson to play first base. Now, Torkelson, you guys got to remember, he's a college guy, 1-1 dude. Those dudes tend to rise fast through the system because they're more polished players. Riley Green, he was a high school kid, and he's been in the minors for a couple years. So for Green or for Torkelson to come up and rise through that quickly is a possibility. I mean, look at Casey Mize. Casey Mize was only in the minors for a year and a half before the Tigers called him up with Tarek Skubal midway through the 2020 COVID season. And, I mean, that was like only a 60-game thing. And the Tigers aren't a team that's ever been a team that really has done the roster time manipulation thing. And now with you can only be optioned 5 times before you're brought to waivers, and now they have this arbitration pool stuff. The service time manipulation, in theory, might not be nearly as much because teams are going to have to pay these guys if they do really good right off the rip. They can't just be like, oh, sweet, but this guy won Rookie of the Year and finished 5th in the MVP voting, and we're only going to pay him league minimum. If they go that high and win like Rookie of the Year or whatnot, they get a nice little bit of a payday increase. So now with the draft lottery, where teams can only tank for so long before they're bumped out of a specific spot of where they would normally pick in a typical draft, this is supposed to help with the service time manipulation and holding guys down longer than they need to manipulate how much money they're going to make, how much time they're going to accrue. So hopefully, now with all this in place, they're going to have a fair shot to make the team. Now, looking at it and thinking about it, they only have 18 games to prove themselves. Torkelson, when he first got called up to Toledo, he had a little bit of a struggle at first, and then his last couple weeks in Toledo, he really started hitting the ball well. Ryan Kreidler, when Kreidler, Green, and Torkelson all got called up to AAA, I went up there and I went to a game with my brother, and Kreidler hit the best of the 3. But Green, he found his stroke and was an absolute monster. Torkelson found his stroke toward the end and brought up his numbers quite a bit from when he first started out. Because when he first started out in AAA, he struggled a little bit. But these guys only have 18 games to prove themselves. And I think that's going to be kind of hard because, when you have 30 games, they can keep them on the spring training roster a little bit longer than versus when you have 18 games where, 1, they're already playing a shortened spring training. 2, you need to give your everyday guys as many at-bats as possible quicker than a typical thing. There's not going to be so many guys playing 5 innings or 3 innings and they're done, getting 2 ABs and they're done. There's going to be more guys ramping it up a little bit quicker to where you see them playing 7 innings or 6 innings where they get a potential 3rd at bat, and the quickness of getting a 4th AB so they get close to 70, I'd say 65 to 80 ABs versus I'd say the standard mark for any given player is 90 to 100 when you're an everyday guy. So when you look at the outfield, a lot of people have been saying that the Tigers needed another outfielder this offseason, and I didn't agree with that the entire time, and I still don't, because there's a lot of people that are down. I think a lot of people expect Akil Baddoo to fall off the face of the earth, which I don't. I think, with what he did last year, you got to understand he was a Rule 5 draft pick guy. He had never played above A ball until last year, and first off, he made the team. And he's a perfect example of why a longer, typical normal strength training length is paramount for someone trying to make a team, because he had more time to prove himself. And, he had a big spring, and he hit all those home runs. Like, he hit 8 home runs or 7 home runs. And, of course, opening day last year on the first pitch he ever sees in the big leagues goes the opposite field for a homer. So I think Akil Baddoo has earned the right to struggle a little bit before you write him off. It's not like you got to have a guy like last year where you signed Omar Mazzara and he was terrible right off the get and didn't even hit 200 and had no power whatsoever. This is a guy that, has earned a spot on to struggle and has earned some time on the roster before you go and say, well, we need a backup plan B. And then Robbie Grossman last year, he had a fantastic year. I don't know why anyone want to try to take ABs away from him. Now, mind you, like, center field is a little bit of an issue because, they went through so many center fielders, whether it was Daz Cameron, Derek Hill, Victor Reyes. So, that was a little bit. But you still have Eric Haas. And Eric Haas, I think if anyone needs to be worried about regression, I think it's Eric Haas more than it is with Akil Baddoo, because now, they got Tucker Barnhart, and Barnhart and Haas will platoon, but with as many home runs as Eric Haas hit last year and the power stroke that he showed, you still want to try to get his bat in the lineup as much as possible, when possible. But with Miguel Cabrera, say Spencer Torkelson makes it out of camp, he's going to play in the majority of first, and Miggy's going to play a lot of DH, because now your infield isn't so versatile like it was last year, because you didn't really have guys that were set in stone places, because Goodrum was hurt. You didn't have a consistent shortstop all year. You could put Scope at first, and you had a merry-go-round at second, and you could even put Jamer because Jamer could play both ends of the corners. So now this year you're more limited, because Javier Baez isn't going to play anywhere but shortstop, and you don't want him to play anywhere but shortstop. It's not like early on in the Cubs years when they had Addison Russell and Baez would play some second at times. Now, Javi's going to be short, Scope is going to be second, and we'll just say hypothetically Torkelson's going to be at first, because you're not going to want to put Torkelson at third base in the big leagues when, one, it was a new position for him, and he still played a lot of first last year in the minors. Two, Jeimer Candelario is a very good third baseman. You don't want to move him. He's not Matt Olson over there, but not Matt Olson, but Matt Chapman over there. But at the same time, he's got decent to above average to above average range. He's got a very good arm. He gets everything hit in front of him. He's very good at coming in on the ball. You don't want to go and shift Jeimer to first and put Torkelson to third. I think that makes absolutely no sense, because Torkelson in college was a pretty solid first baseman. I don't know if he's a Gold Glover. I haven't watched enough of his defensive highlights and have read too much. But when he first got drafted, the thing on him was said is that he's not going to hurt you at first. He does enough over there along with his stick to be more than serviceable. Nothing like Eric Hosmer type hands or stuff like that. I didn't hear anything about that. But putting him at third would make no sense. So you'd want Jeimer at third. So the infield this year, and then you're going to want Barnhart's not going anywhere behind the dish. He's coming back off a little bit of injury last year, but, he had a guy that is very, very good defensively behind the plate, which the Tigers needed. I swear to God, the Tigers did not have a single catcher last year that was good at blocking the ball at all. None of those guys were good at blocking the ball, and all the pass balls, it was just a joke. Now you get someone like Tucker Barnhart back there. So that leaves this gray area for Eric Haas. How are you going to play him? Because you can't go, if Miggy's DHing, he's going to play 145, 150 games this year if he's going to DH, because there's so much less chance of injury, him playing at first. So that leaves, where does Eric Haas play, and how does Eric Haas play? Because if you only play Eric Haas twice a week and give, Miguel Cabrera one off day a week, so Haas DHs a game, and then you give Barnhart one day off a week, potentially two, so that's 3 games a week you would play. And then you could sub him in and out of the outfield for, someone that needs a blow every once in a while, whether it's a Robbie Grossman you want to take out and give him a day off, Haas could go play right, or, shift him to left and put Badu in right. The biggest issue is center field. And if Riley Green makes it out of camp, which if I had to pick one of the two, I would say Riley Green is going to make it out of camp versus more so than Spencer Torkelson. Because Torkelson, from what Dan Dickerson said, has kind of struggled a little bit off the rip in the inter-squad games and whatnot like that. But he's kind of picked it up a little bit. But Riley Green, if you guys remember last year, he was bombing the hell out of the ball in spring training before they sent him down to Toledo. And, he was hitting like he wanted to make the team. But, obviously he didn't, and Akil Baddoo did. So now you could put Riley Green out in center, and you could put Akil Baddoo in left and Grossman in right. And I think that would be extremely well. I think right now what we're going to see over the next 2 weeks is what happens to Victor Reyes. What do you do with the Castros? And how does Eric Haas fit into this team? Because Eric Haas had a stick last year, and he hit a lot of home runs, and he was a vital bat for you. Now, he could definitely, for sure, be your backup catcher, but I think with that kind of power that he showed last year, you got to let him struggle until he proves he's not worth giving ABs to anymore. But when you hit 20-some home runs, and you could stick him in the outfield and behind the dish, that's a nice a nice person to have on your team, kind of like Connor Falefa, which the Twins just got for Mitch Garver. He was a guy, he played shortstop at a really high level, but he was a catcher. That's a vital skill set. Now, I'm not trying to say the thing of Eric Haas is like, you don't have him on your team, your roster's screwed. I'm just looking at like this. You got two guys that are just banging on the door. They're not knocking on Detroit anymore. They are banging to the point the door is cracking. They are pretty much ready to play in the big leagues. Like I said, Torkelson being a college bat, we knew he was going to advance quick, like Casey Mize did, and he did. And then Riley Green, now being in the minors for a few years, I mean, you can only keep this kid down for so long. When he was in the inter-squad games in 2020, he was destroying everything. When he was in spring training last year, he played extremely well. He can play all three outfield spots. He's got speed. He's got extremely good plate approach. You watch this kid. Wait till he's in Detroit, guys. I don't know if you watch some Riley Green highlights. This kid's ability, bat to ball skills, and you look at his frame, like he's kind of like a lanky dude. But I keep saying this, and I'm gonna stay on this. I'm gonna die on this hill. He is like George Springer 2.0, I think, with a little bit less strikeout. He has that same kind of gritty ability. He's got the same kind of like body style. He's got the same kind of like power potential as George Springer. And you look at this guy's frame and you see his consistency bat to ball skills. It's insane. And then you see what he's able to do in the outfield with how he's able to play all three positions out in the outfield and play them well. And he's got a good arm along with the speed ability. He is a complete package. Now, he's never going to be a guy that's going to hit you 40 home runs, or 35 home runs. But this is a guy I have no doubt at whatsoever. He's going to go out there and play average to above average defense, whatever spot you put him in the outfield. The guys are going to learn real quick that he's got a good arm, and he's going to be able to hold runners if you put him in a corner position. And he's going to go out there and smack you 20 to 25 home runs while striking out less than 150 times in a season because he's got a great plate approach. He's got outstanding bat-to-ball skills. He's got some really solid pop, such a good defender. And I think between Torkelson and Green, and I've said this 1,000 times in here, I think Riley Green is the superstar of the two. If any of those two are going to be a bust, which I hope they're not, but there always is, a room. Prospects are prospects. You don't know. If any of those two are going to be a bust, I would say Torkelson over Green. I just think his skill set, all-around skill set, is better than the two. I think he's a complete package. With Torkelson, where he's got a little more swing and miss. He's a little more boom bust. He's only able to play first base. Green he's a superstar in the making, and I've said that, and I'm going to continue to say that. So with that said, you look at the potential for them to make the team. I really, really hope that they do, because I'm going to be there in Detroit, and I'd be at their major league debuts, which would be so freaking cool. But at the same time, us as Tiger fans, and understanding the expectations, and understanding that these guys only have 18 games to prove themselves, and they're going to see a lot of the best pitchers for a little bit longer than they normally would. I mean, you look at like when most of those guys get at bats, they probably get a start or two a week, and then come in mid-game when all the A, B starters are out of the game, and you're facing a dude that is also a minor leaguer that really doesn't have a chance to make the big leagues. That's typically when these guys would get in and see at bats, and it's a little bit easier for them to rake. Now, they're going to have to rake right off the get, and they're not really going to have a lot of opportunity to struggle that much to make the opening day roster. Because I think with everyone that's on the team and roster moves to be decided, we still got Zach Short. I don't think he has a chance in hell at sticking in Detroit. I think he's going to be DFA'd sometime this year. Like I said, with the Castros, you still got Eric Haas. You still got Victor Reyes. If you want to stick someone out there, just to start, Derek Hill is not going to hurt you whatsoever. Now, he's not going to do anything special with the stick, but if you're just trying to stay strong up the middle, now that you got Baez and Tucker Barnhart, putting someone like Derek Hill out there who is as good as it gets with the glove, that's not going to hurt you either until, Riley Green is ready to come up and overtake Hill out of that position. And right now, with the Javier Baez signing and the acquisition of Tucker Barnhart, and with these guys knocking on the door to potentially be in Detroit, Green and Torkelson, the Tigers have a lot of depth. And they're going to have to figure out real quick how it's all going to play out and who's all going to make the team and who all is going to get some at-bats. And I just hope that in the 18 games is enough time for these guys to prove themselves. But that's pretty much the main roster battle, because most of this stuff is pretty much set in stone with who we have on the team. Who we have on the team is going to be the starters. They proved themselves last year. There's not really anyone, like a Victor Reyes is not going to overtake a Robbie Grossman as an everyday player. Or Willie Castro has zero chance in hell at overthrowing a Javier Baez. At this point, it's who's going to be your bench guys, whether it's one of the Castros for the infield because play second short. Zach Short isn't going to do anything super special with the stick, but you can put him anywhere in the middle infield, and he's got a really good glove. And you have more than enough outfielders now between Reyes, Hill, Cameron, Badu, Grossman, Haas. You have more than enough outfielders. At this point, it's just positioning them and figuring out at bats over the next 18 games. So that's pretty much it, guys. A little bit of a spring training preview and some of the roster battles to watch out for. And like I said, Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson was for sure the first big thing and the main storyline to watch out for. And Miguel Cabrera is already pulling for Spencer Torkelson to be the first baseman. Javier Baez was talking about the depth that we have and some of the young guys he's excited to play around. So, I don't know. Like I said, I'm hopeful, and I hope they make it. But as Tiger fans, we kind of got to hinder our expectations a little bit because it's very easy for someone like Torkelson, who's only had one full minor league season, and then like someone like Riley Green, to get cold at the wrong time, and then they're down in Toledo for maybe the rest of April, and then they get brought up, in May. Either or which way. I hope they make it. But we'll see. 18 games prove themselves. I'm happy baseball's back. I'm happy this is the first actual Tigers video I was able to make, actually talking about roster spots and players. So I will be back once do an opening day preview. Maybe I'll do it with my brother the night before opening day, and we'll talk about the roster and whoever had made it from spring training at that time, and we'll go from there. Have a good one, guys. Go Tigers.